And I will open now the floor, first to the members, and there is only one member asking for the floor, Jude Kirton-Darling, please.
Thanks very much. Thank you, first of all, to all of the speakers. That was really useful, and I'm of a firm belief that there's no black and white in trade policy, and it's shades of grey, and I think your presentations set out some of those shades of grey. But I have a few questions as a result, and I'll try and direct them to people specifically. So to Mr. Verheul, I hope that's properly pronounced. I'd like to know from your perspective what impact you feel CETA could have on the Canadian model on access to medicines. It's been very controversial. We know that Canada's model relies heavily on generics, and so it hasn't been mentioned in these presentations, and it would be interesting to get your take on that. And then I have a general question, maybe to the academics and to Mauro, around the implications of CETA ratification when there's a question at the court on Singapore, and whether the Singapore case has an impact and should have an impact on CETA ratification. And then two quick questions to Mr. Sauvé. So, I don't know whether I'm terrible at pronouncing names, so I apologise profusely. You mentioned that the EU should arrive into the 21st century. It's quite a controversial statement. And I'd just like to ask, and you mentioned that particularly in relation to negative listing and questions around ratchets. So for me, there's an inherent conflict between the right to regulate and ratchet clauses. Is that correct to view that inherent conflict? And in that way, surely isn't democracy also part of the 21st century, or are we leaving that in the 20th century and we move to technocracy? Because that seems to be the implication. And the second question in relation to ISDS, you posed the question, do we need ISDS in mature legal systems? And the response was potentially no, but there may be places within the EU and possibly within Canada where people feel that they don't have fair access to justice. Well, just a technical question, maybe also to Mauro as well. Wouldn't any foreign company operating within the EU also have access to EU justice in the case of a concern about investment? So isn't that already covered by the fact that the EU justice system exists? And I'd like an answer on that. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Mr. Fjellner.